Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Eerie Hour with Eric. For those who wish to hear tales of the strange, the macabre, and various urban legends, you have come to the right place. Tonight, join us around the fire as Eric reads a spine-tingling tale for your entertainment. Prepare to be scared, for this is Eerie Hour with Eric. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Eric.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Eerie Hour with Eric. I'm your host, Eerie Erich, and once again, welcome to Around the Fire, where we tell scary stories of the strange, the macabre, and various urban legends. Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the Season 2 finale. That's right, we've reached the end of the line for this season of Eerie Hour with Eric. And certainly a lot has happened within this season. We have not only filmed outside here in the fire pit, but we've also filmed indoors by candlelight, and we've done experimental audio-only episodes. And my team and I have been hard at work researching bigger and better things for Season 3. Not only more scary stories and tales of terror, but also a few surprises, let's just put it that way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, followers of our social media pages already know what tonight's tale is about. But for our viewers watching at home on YouTube, here are 4 clues that we gave. 1, it's a very famous landmark. 2, you wouldn't want to get sent here. 3, make sure you have the keys to lock up the building at night. And 4, the ravens live here, but can never leave. Any guesses as to what it is? If you said the Tower of London, then you are correct. We've read a tale from Ireland, we've read a tale from Scotland, we've read a tale from Wales. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the end of Season 2, we read a tale from England about the infamous Tower of London. And this story about the tower is from creepyghoststories.com. But first, guess what? I do need my glasses. There we are. The Tower of London. The Tower of London is one of London's most visited attractions and one of London's most haunted places. Maybe this is why there are countless ghost sightings and endless reports of creepy goings-on. As with any good ghost story, there is a bit of history behind it. So before we get to delve into the tower's hauntings and creepy ghost stories, we need to look at how and why this huge tourist attraction has claimed the title as one of not only London's, but some even say England's most haunted place. The first fortification, known as the White Tower of this infamous and hugely popular castle, was constructed in 1078 by none other than William the Conqueror, aka William the Bastard. Forward on 250 years after the end of William the Conqueror's reign, and the castle had expanded vastly by other monarchs adding to their personal pieces to the castle. And now the Tower of London sits on over 12 acres of land, with many buildings and fortifications, with the White Tower being the most famous. 1078 was a very long time ago, and over the years the castle has been used for many things, from a place of residence for the medieval monarchy, a hiding place from enemies, and a place for the royals to display their jewel-encrusted crowns and other precious items for all to envy. The fortress also had a darker side though: prisoners and death. The Tower of London wasn't intended to be a place of imprisonment, and it certainly wasn't meant to be made famous for its torture and death that it's known for today. But that's exactly what this castle hosted. The list of prisoners is huge, which ranges from kings and queens and their consorts right through to bishops and thieves. The first recorded prisoner was William, Count of Mortain, who was held in 1106 as a prisoner of war. He was stripped of his royal title and was held at the tower for many years. He was one of the fortunate ones, and although he was held there for many years, he found his new calling as a monk in 1140 after his release. Anne Boleyn, the second wife of the greedy King Henry VIII of England, was held there before she was beheaded, as was his fifth wife, Catherine Howard. Lady Jane Grey, the uncrowned Queen of England, was held a prisoner in the Tower from 1553 until she was murdered by beheading on February 12th the following year, along with her husband, Guilford Dudley. In 1605, Guy Fawkes was arrested and was held and interrogated ruthlessly. It is thought he was also put through a series of tortures until he pleaded guilty to his part in the gunpowder plot. He was found guilty of treason and sentenced to a very painful and torturous death. He was to be hung, drawn, and quartered. However, Guy Fawkes managed to escape his impending doom by jumping from the ladder of the scaffolding of the hanging platform and breaking his neck. Over the centuries, the Tower of London hosted its fair share of bloodshed from cutting off heads, limbs, and even cutting out tongues. Torturing was also a favorite pastime here. Many people were tied to the rack by their wrists and ankles and then stretched until their limbs dislocated from their bodies, and then finally their bodies were ripped into quarters. Others were put into iron manacles and left to hang for days in great pain, and others mentally tortured and confined in dark and tiny places with rats. The deaths came to an end on August 15th, 1941, when the very last execution was carried on Josef Jacobs, a German spy. And then finally, in 1952, the tower held the last of its prisoners, and they were the notorious Cray twins, Ronnie and Reggie. They were held for a few days when they both failed to report for their national service duties. It's safe to say that over the years, these old walls have seen many bloodied bodies and disfigured limbs, along with the vision of that last look of someone's face as their heads are being savagely cut off with an axe, and sounds of the cries and harrowing screams from souls being tortured, and the anguish of despair, helpless to do what's about to happen to them. Now this once dark and shaded fortress is now a treasured piece of English history. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth still has an on-site residency within the castle grounds, and she can inhabit the Queen's house whenever she wants to. However, the Queen rarely resides here, unlike the yeoman warders or beefeaters who live on site. But the yeoman warders and the Queen's Guard aren't the only ones who reside here. There are reports that this castle is also home to a few flittering ghosts. One of the most reported creepy ghosts here is the beheaded ghost of Anne Boleyn. There are many reports from not only tourists, but from the yeoman warders of seeing the ghost of Anne Boleyn. One of the first ghostly reports was way back in 1864, when a guard was patrolling the courtyard grounds. He claimed that he looked up and rushing towards him was a figure so clear that he thought it was a real person. It wasn't until he saw that her feet weren't touching the ground and she was hovering in the air. He was so scared that he fainted on the spot and was almost court-martialed for being asleep while on duty. The captain of the guard also claimed to have seen the ghost of Anne Boleyn. He was on patrol at night and thought he saw lights flickering from the chapel royal of St. Peter ad Vincula. He climbed up the ladder to see who was lurking inside, only to nearly fall off his ladder when he witnessed a group of ghostly ladies and knights leading behind a shadowy figure of Anne. Throughout the years, there have been more and more reports of visitors seeing the ghosts of the dead queen, but not just her full-bodied apparition. There are claims that a headless Anne Boleyn is seen. Her headless body is often seen to be wandering aimlessly near the tower where she was executed, and also walking down the aisle of the church, hovering towards her grave, which sits under the altar. Another more frequent ghost sighting, or sightings as they come in a pair, is that of two young princes, who just one day mysteriously disappeared as they were playing. It is rumored that their uncle, Richard III, first locked the young princes Edward V and his younger brother Richard in the Garden Tower, which is now better known as the Bloody Tower, before killing them and hiding their remains. Another ghost seen to be wearing white is that of the Lady in White. This ghostly lady can be found in the White Tower. Before her death, she was known for looking down and waving at the children playing in the grounds. Now, in her deathly state, she is often found hovering around the entrance of St. John's Chapel within the White Tower. You'll know she's there even before you see or sense her. She has a really pungent and nasty perfume that lingers in the air. Many of the guards say that the smell is that horrible that they feel sick when she's around. So far, the Tower of London ghosts have been very tame and harmless, but not all the spirits that live here are quite so kind. Some are hands-on and even dangerous. As we know, the guards of the Tower of London have witnessed a lot of the creepy ghosts, and some have even had the hands-on experience, as in this case. Whilst on duty patrolling the area and grounds where Henry VIII's suit of armor is on display, one of the guards was all alone and going about his own business, when suddenly he claimed that he had been attacked by no one. He reports of a terrifying sensation that someone had thrown a blanket or cloak over his head. The unseen entity was so strong that the guard was unable to escape, and the cloak was swiftly removed from the guard's head and then placed around his throat and pulled so tightly that the guard couldn't breathe. With one final attempt, the guard managed to release the invisible noose and legged it. Back in the safe haven of his quarters, and upon investigation, it was clear that this invisible angry soul had meant harm and had left visible signs of the attack around his neck. This isn't the only scary happenings around this area. Most, if not all, the guards all express the same crushing of the chest feelings whenever they enter the entrance to where Henry VIII's armor is. Henry VIII was a very bitter and vengeful character, so much so that he even had the mother of one of his rivals, Margaret Pole, the Countess of Salisbury, executed for treason, accusing her of being part of a conspiracy to usurp the throne of England, in part of her son Reginald refusing to recognize Henry as head of the newly formed Church of England. The poor 65-year-old woman was sentenced to have her head chopped off, but she wasn't going to go down without a fight. She ran as fast as her old legs could carry her, but only to be chased down swiftly by the axeman, who right there on the spot brought her to her gruesome and painful death. You don't need to imagine how painful her last moments were. You can see and hear it. There are numerous reports of witnesses actually seeing this bloody scene unravel before their eyes. It's reported that on the anniversary of her murder, her lost soul is seen to relive her final moments of life as she runs through the grounds, followed by her heart-wrenching screams before perishing into the air. As well as these famous ghosts, there are so many non-famous ones here too. Many people express a feeling of someone watching their every move as they make their way around the place, as if they're being followed. Snippets of shadowy figures are often seen from the corner of the eye, and strong odors just seem to appear from nowhere, and even on a few occasions, a few visitors report that someone touched them when there wasn't anybody there. With all the high paranormal activity that happens here, and with so many people experiencing the creepy and terrifying events, I think it's safe to say that not only is the Tower of London haunted, but it may be true that this is the most haunted place in England. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, would you visit the Tower of London? But if you do, be sure to leave before 10 p.m. You don't want to get locked in with all the ghosts and spirits and never leave. And speaking of leaving, I must be off. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this Season 2 finale of Eerie Hour with Eric. If you liked it, please hit that like button. Also make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can receive all the latest updates from Eerie Hour with Eric. And make sure to check out the main channel as well to see more scary story videos as well as more awesome content. And be sure to share this with your friends, your family, your co-workers, and anyone else whom you interact with on a daily basis. And also, don't forget to like us on Facebook and Instagram. But before I disappear back into the shadows, my friends, I always say dreams can become reality. But at the same time, dreams can also become nightmares. But can nightmares become reality? Well then, you be the judge. Tune in for Season 3 of Eerie Hour with Eric. If you dare.